Hello, and welcome to another podcast of SENDhelp. Well, welcome to another SENDhelp podcast. See, I told you about the intro, but today I've got Rosie with me from Empowered Coaching, and this is a really good one because not only has she got her company, she's one of our trusted voices that's going to be in the SENDhelp app. That's going to be helping out families and kids and children and everyone really going forward as well. So we're going to be collaborating on a few things, so that's going to be great. So I'm going to let Rosie explain kind of a bit about herself, where she is, her back.
Okay, hello. Thank you so much for having me on. I love the podcasts. So, first and foremost, I'm a parent to three children, two of whom are neurodivergent. One also has been out of school for 2 years due to his anxieties and things. So, I'm a qualified ADHD coach, and that's for adults and children. And I've been a teacher for 14 years. So I've sat on both sides of the table, been in meetings as a professional, but then at home seeing a child's world absolutely fall apart and just trying to kind of navigate that. And I suppose that dual kind of perspective has really made me focus in on how I've heard how the language in schools is used and how that affects our children, really.
Yeah. How did you feel from going from being in the field? Because I go similar, not directly, but as like registered manager, so I still like autism and then all the needs and forensics and stuff like that. But how did you feel becoming a STEM parent on top of when you was like, as you said, you're a teacher for a long time and then becoming a STEM parent?
Drastically. Drastically.
Yeah.
So my middle son, so he's 12, just turned 12. He was diagnosed with autism at 4, and ADHD a bit later on. School just never really worked for him. It was so anxiety inducing. He was really good at masking for a really long time. I think the age helped because when you're younger, it's more about the play, learning through play. And then when he got to year 1, year 2, it was the expectations grew for him, and he was not able to cope at all, to the point where we changed his school, and then in year 5 he just wasn't able to get into school at all. And this was actually with a really, really supportive teacher in year 5, but just, I think it was years and years of masking, and he broke. The mask slipped and he just broke down. He had an absolute autistic burnout. At the time, I was working at a school in senior leadership. So I had a lot of responsibilities and a lot going on in my professional life. And I think it was just one too many things. And I then suffered a complete burnout. And it took me that time away to think, right, something really needs to change here. And so I quit my job. I stayed at home with Teddy while he was completely and utterly broken. And then I've gone back into teaching 2 days a week, but doing this advocacy and ADHD coaching the rest of the week, mainly to support Teddy through.
I think it's very common, isn't it? It's a shame, but it's good that you put yours to use. I've been to other people that have been teachers and stuff, but it's just that's something you kind of go to uni and want to really be, isn't it? That's not something you just accidentally just take a job for. And to
Yeah.
be able and to have to lose that for having your own child, it kind of baffles your head, doesn't
Yeah.
it? Like,
Yeah.
and especially when you're working in the same systems, and as I said, now going over to fight the systems, and then you're having a different position, like at the bottom, being a SEN parent, trying to fight for everything. It's exhausting, isn't it? It's exhausting.
It is absolutely mentally and physically exhausting. And that's one of the massive things. I wanted to stay in teaching for that
Mm.
short time, the 2 days a week, just so I'm still there supporting these parents who are going through what I went through. Maybe their kids might not be in burnout yet, but it's trying to help these parents before their children. It's being like
Mhm.
proactive rather than always being reactive, which I think can be really tricky. And also just breaking down any barriers that there may be in terms of, it could be, I've met through a lot of adults who maybe had a really hard time at school themselves for a variety of reasons, who don't trust schools, which is completely understandable. Or, families who are kind of being a bit bamboozled by the language that schools are using, and feeling like schools are almost weaponizing the language to build up this barrier rather than break it down and use it for support, which I find really hard to
I
see.
think that's yeah, yeah. I was going to say touching that, and I think that's a very good point, and I think we can go on to that quite naturally now. About the language that the schools use, because I think it's done deliberate, and I think it's done in a way that it sounds so much worse than it actually is, or you sound like so much more is going to be done than actually is done.
Yeah.
So it's very thought out the way that these things are said. But yeah, I'd like kind of more your kind of insight.
Yeah, I think sometimes it feels like the professionals, and this can be teachers, it can be Senkos, it can be when you're in an EHCP meeting and you've got the SEND officers in. Sometimes for parents, it feels like they're being protective of the systems rather than being like really supportive of the families. There's kind of that defensiveness, I think, that lots and lots of SEND parents feel. And I think using language like that becomes, there's a power imbalance then. And you feel like as a SEND parent, you're going a bit crazy. You're like, you're fighting so hard to prove that your child is bad enough to get this
And
support.
how horrible that is, even saying it out loud, isn't it? Proving that your
Isn't it?
kid's badly behaved or badly
Yeah.
enough behaved not to be badly behaved. Actually,
And I think I don't know about you, but I have spent so many hours coming out of meetings thinking, am I going crazy? Like, are they not as bad as I think? Is it my parenting? Is it, are they perfect in school? And they might be, but there are reasons for that, being the main one. But I think it's about using language that invites parents in rather than making them feel like the problem, which I think a
yeah,
lot of parents I speak to, they feel like the blame's being put on them. It's their parenting, it's their way they speak, it's the way they a lot of parents feel like the teachers or whoever in school have been saying, well, that's because you let him do this at home, or at school we have to do it like this. And I think working with families, especially SEND families, is so relational. It shouldn't be procedural. I mean, you could have the absolute best EHCP or the best pupil profile in the entire history of the world written down, but if that child doesn't trust you, or that family doesn't trust you because you haven't created that rapport, then it's kind of just words on paper. It's not going to
yeah,
get anywhere. Um,
yeah,
and I
definitely.
think that's where there's a lack. I think it's really, really sad.
It's sad. It's a mixture, isn't it? Because it's almost like it's hard to put it down to one problem in the sense of people being the attacker and the other one being defender. Because there's so many things and variables that you need to throw in there. Again, like schools, it's like what they're actually told that their policies they're right following through overrides a personal teacher's opinion. This approach has trickles down the school. If you have the wrong head teacher's approach, that's going to be felt. There's so many things that prevent teachers from being able to help as much as it is, again, like the language. But ultimately, I think it takes, in this day and age, where the attention is so high, the SEN parents side, rightly so, it's a lot of time, emotional, not emotional drain, but emotional. It's emotional. It takes an emotional toll by opening the door to kind of let yourself be attacked like that.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
think you either got two choices ultimately, and this is what it comes down to. You either stay on the side of you defend the school and the policy and defend your job role in a sense, or you try to help these parents and end up vulnerable, stuck in the middle, and end up like maybe you have the job or having to then get called out and think your whole job, you as a teacher, it's so hard to pinpoint one issue, isn't it? It's
yeah.
like there's so many things going.
I think it's really hard. This is absolutely not about teacher bashing from me at all, because I can see just how hard so many teachers work. It's systemic. It's beyond their not abilities, but their, like you said, it's not their choice how the procedures and policies are put in place. And actually, I know we've talked about this before. So much of it is about training, and it's I think in 2026, training just has to be everywhere. Anyone who works with children in a school should be trained in autism, should be trained in ADHD, should be trained in all these strategies to support, because you don't know what you don't know. So, yeah, it's moving forward, there's going to be so many more children in our classrooms who won't get their EHCP if the government, the white paper, they're not going to have the EHCP. There's going to be so many more children on SEN support. And teachers need to know how to support those children, but also themselves from burnout, the other children from learning. And that's not going to happen without kind of systemic change and bringing in training all over.
Yeah. What I would hope with the training, it would be very parent focused and not just another training. Because I've seen schools that have had training, they're just like, it's awful. We get once
Yeah.
a year and it's just not relevant. Like, and I think it's hard as well because again, you could still do training, but to a certain degree, lived experience is the way forward, isn't it? It's the way it's so superior as any training, and they've already got that in their classroom. But again, even approaching that and learning from the classroom, they actually are then taken away from the other kids because it's such a thing that you have to learn and embrace. Like you have to live with it. Literally, you have to be with it all the time. So it's such a hard conundrum. But I still think it is hard to that teacher that whole defense of it. There's no training. There's no training. It's your job role now.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's as you said. There's five. There might be five people to a class now. It's going to go six. It's going to go seven. It's going to go eight, and that's underdiagnosed, right? So it's your job role. So it might not be the job role that you've kind of went to go into, but it is the job role that you've fallen into. So you have to really be coming halfway out. But again, it really it's I love to see how much of that is getting held back from teachers, how much of them are actually trying to know the system, and the system's just like, no, we're not doing it that way. And then again, you're not going to put yourself in the middle of the firing line with no support. So if you're a teacher and you're the one that's saying the difference to every other teacher in the school, you're
Yeah.
outed, you're not going to get spoken about. You're really vulnerable. So it's very hard to even make that change.
Yeah. And I think that's where, like you said, the lived experience, that's where that using parents as
Mm.
a resource is really, really important because they're the ones who know their children. We know our children inside out. So if they come to you and say, look, we're really struggling at home, half an hour after they get in, this is what we're seeing, this is what's happening. And instead of saying, well, we don't see that at school, they're fine in school. We all know that they're not fine in school. And using that and saying, right, well, can they explain to you what has happened? Or, they might not be able to explain to you, but just listening and using them and letting them feel heard and know that they are the expert on their children.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. It's language like that, isn't it? Like, well, they're fine in school. It's very dismissive.
Yeah,
It's just like, oh, well, the problem's yours. We're not doing anything wrong. And it's almost like they're answering it like that. Like, well, we're not doing anything wrong. They're fine in school. And what they actually mean is that educationally might be fine. And I think what I see a lot of the times is schools saying that up until a point when the school grades get affected, then they care. And by that
yeah,
time, it's year five, six, and you're going to
yeah,
transition to a new school. So like year four, five seems to be like the biz of those kids.
yeah,
I think my kids again was absolutely. I see score reports didn't even have no bad. Even score reports, but absolutely. Then there was. I remember they were bringing us like, yeah, no, and listening symptoms. I was like, I've been saying this for years,
yeah,
but it didn't help. And it's almost like then you've got your backup of justice. You're like, yeah, fine. Well, you can just deal with this now. Like, do you know what I mean? And it's almost like it's war, like
yeah,
for students,
yeah,
isn't it? Like,
yeah. And it's hard because them being, I think, like you said, as soon as attendance starts to fall,
mhm,
that's when the higher up in the school start to notice because that's, they have to deal with the higher up from them. But kind of attendance doesn't mean that they're accessing. So they could be sitting in a classroom masking all day, not taking anything in because they're using every ounce of their body to be present and to pretend that they're okay, completely breaking apart at home, and they can only do that for so long. Like, their body will just give up, like it did with Teddy. The mask will slip, and then, it's so hard to repair that instead of trying to the small little cuts. Once they've combusted, I find that's so hard to get children back feeling safe, feeling supported, feeling listened to. Again, it's that kind of reactive instead of proactive. You can see that the small things are starting. Listen to the parents, listen to, the experts and try and put things in place before.
yeah, yeah,
Actually, if you think about it, we've always been, you know, a lot of teachers find teaching overwhelming at the moment, like you said, because it has changed. The landscape has completely changed since I started teaching, and that's only 14 years ago. But like you said, you're either committed to it or you're not. And if you're not, that's fine, but you need to make that change.
mhm.
But becoming an inclusive classroom is actually not, it's not more work for you.
It's less work. I can't believe how many times yeah, especially for teachers about saying to me how easy it is. And even my feet like saying it would be easy. I think this is another thing again when it's hard to back teachers in that sense because when they're saying they're fine in school and then they're saying stuff like that. It
Yeah.
doesn't. It doesn't. Like,
No, I mean, if you're having a visual timetable on the board for predictable routines, that it's a second. It takes a second, but actually that could really ease a child's anxiety, or those predictable transitions. Yes, things happen that that might come up in schools, but when they can be, just making sure that it's all predictable, making sure that they've got the things they need. Movement breaks. I mean, I know I need a movement break.
Mhm.
You know,
I think in 2026, most people do, and I argue this as well. Like well, forget neurodiverse, neurotypical kids now would learn exactly the same way and learn more effective that way. And it's everything's short, everything is low in the attention
yes,
span. And I saw something like from the YouTube guy, and he invented shorts whatever, and he said that he wished he never invented it, and that kids have access to it. And there's studies to say about the attention span of kids in the last 10 years of like reaching it. And when you've got that line that so if kids are actually naturally coming towards more ADHD naturally, why are you not just adapting to everybody? Every neurotypical or neurodiverse kid would work in the setting. I promise you, with that's adapted for everybody, isn't it? Like
yeah,
even outside learning, what kid's going to go now? I'd rather learn inside.
yeah.
Probably the autistic one that doesn't like outside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, it's like I remember from my childhood the days where your teacher did let you go outside and learn. You thought it
Oh,
was the
yeah.
most magical thing in the world, didn't you?
I
I
still
know.
remember the lesson. Actually, I
Yeah.
still remember the exact lesson going under that tree to go to that. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah. Yeah. I know my son finds the confines of a classroom, just being inside, he finds that, much more stressful and that's why he thrived when he went to alternative provision at a farm, because it was outside, it was, um, and I know that, schools can't fund alternative provision for everyone because I mean, it's incredibly expensive. It's, hundreds and hundreds a day, which is why when budgets are going down for schools, schools are really struggling with budgets. We can put these things in place that don't actually cost any money, and they're going to
Yeah,
children. That's going to save schools money instead of a child reaching a point where they can't make it into our schools, having to pay hundreds of pounds a day for alternative provision. But actually, we just need to provide better provision in mainstream. And that's not
and
always going to be the case. That's tricky to do.
yeah.
But
And you've got to always, but when it comes to like forest school stuff, why are they not taking note? I know like that this is the problem that they can solve again, is that they've got these forest schools having to see the world and thinking this is how it should be done now. But then they have to have a living, so you're paying them hundreds. Why don't you set one up yourself?
yeah,
Or work with these companies to set it up. Okay, we'll work with you half and half. We'll help you with this side because I'm sure that they're looking paycheck to paycheck to try and survive. When you've got the oversight, you can keep the security for them, and they can provide you. It just seems baffling that they're going to even accept that other people have got it right and they're still going to stick to their rigid routine and
yeah,
have all these forest schools, have all these provisions that parents are like, they would thrive then.
yeah,
Actually, like,
yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think it's got to a point where schools are saying, this is too expensive, this is too expensive. But like you said, we can set these things up ourselves using the staff we've got, because it is in a couple of years, schools, I think classrooms are going to look even more different than they do now. And why wait? Why wait for that? It's like
yeah.
when you're waiting for a child, you wait for a child to not fail, but to explode instead of putting those things in place beforehand.
It's like what they do in England quite a lot, and it worries me that this might happen with this one. It's like they wait for some big incident to happen,
Yeah,
something to go wrong, some kid to go through these failings that we hear every single day, and something absolutely catastrophic to happen before then they go unanimously, yeah, well, that's not going to happen again. We're going to put this in place and this in place. And it's like they won't do it until that point. And it's almost like, again, as you said, reactive instead of proactive. It's so outdated to be
yeah,
reactive to things. Like everyone knows, like proactive is the way forward. Like I think in PBS training, they say 75% of all behaviour is proactive, but it's a beginning bit. You can get in there, you can stop it happening. Like
yeah,
you don't need to get to the 25% of the behaviour and the reactive bit. Like if you're really effective, and it just seems like they're not. I don't know if it's like they're not. Again, it's more than school to school because it's like systematic because every area is talking to it's the same issues. It tells you that the direction's the same, isn't it, throughout the
yeah.
government and stuff like that. It's just like how what do you do and how do you stop them from thinking like that when it's so hard. It baffles me. It really baffles me. Like the whole approach about how they're waiting to the last minute when they can see the world. It's like, are they just waiting for it just not to be wrong? I think it's
Yeah.
just almost like it's just a point to prove, isn't it? That it's not, it's kids are at the middle of this and they're suffering and no one can look down and just see a child. And that's what scares me about this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think kind of always goes back to this training, because it's things like I've known some absolutely brilliant teachers who don't know how to write a pupil profile
Mhm.
because they've never been taught how to do it. And that's looking not just teacher to teacher, because we shouldn't be, as SEND parents, hoping and praying every summer holidays that the next teacher gets it, that the next teacher isn't just going to be like, oh, it's just behavior. We should be going into every September knowing my child's going to have this in place, this in place, this in place. The expectations are the same. That shouldn't be one of our worries, because we're already exhausted. We're already at the point where we're, on the edge because of everything we're having to deal with as SEND parents. It shouldn't be that schools are then making it one more thing. It should be, why isn't every single teacher trained how to write a pupil profile? Because they want to be. They want to be really effective. And when there's a really effective pupil profile in place, it's that language again, isn't it? Instead of the wishy-washy kind of, when they, I don't know, when they feel a little bit fizzy or this, that, the other, this can happen. It needs to be really smart targets in order for it to work for the child, because otherwise, the wrong language can actually fail a child.
What when I was working in adult, so I was adult services towards the end, started school, but then when I was doing the management stuff, I ended up in adult services. And what I didn't realize they didn't happen in school, it said, was the training. Because when you've got even support workers that haven't got any uni degree that are coming in, and the first thing you teach them is how to effectively write or follow a care plan or an IEP or something, and that's just across the board. And you just think that there's no reason why that's not in teacher training. It's unfair that they're not got that, because there is a way, as you said, there is very, very difference in language about how you write a profile. Like, so I've got, again, I don't know, but my kid's one when it called him a liar in it directly.
Yeah.
And I'm not stupid. I know that he probably mistell the truth a lot of the times, like he does it here. But you can't say that. And the reason he does that is more than he's just a liar. It's he might get the story wrong, and you can't tell sometimes whether he believes these things. But it's almost like his story, the way his filter goes in with ADHD and autism, that's two processing filters, and then you've got the story. So that's, if you put it in that way, it doesn't harm him. But by putting him to saying he's a liar, it harms. Like, do
Of
you know what I mean?
course.
That's no, but then it's again, that could just be. I know the word is a bit tough for that extreme case, but like sometimes the wording does have the effect on how people read that, and that's what they go for to follow on. Okay, we leave that profile from. Everyone looks at that, and that's how they act on them on impulse. Just from,
Yeah.
okay, we've got that, and that's how I'm going to act. So if you've got that wrong or got that written badly, that kid for the rest of his life is going to have people treating him or her like that. And
Yeah.
it's just from a language barrier, just
Yeah.
from not writing something just slightly different.
Yeah, and that could, that one word on on your son's pupil profile, calling him a liar, that could that's going to follow him through
Mhm.
his entire school career, because teachers will look at that and it is, that bias comes in, doesn't it? You read it,
Well,
must be true,
yeah.
like,
What actually happened was, as I said, and it went into it, and it turned out that it was like another kid reported the racism that was happening to Calvin. I went in there, and Calvin had been reporting racism for like a year and a half and bullying. And because of this SIM profile that you can't see, every teacher has just knocked it down. Oh, Calvin, whatever. Oh, that didn't happen. They even had me question it. Stuff like, oh, yeah, I've got it for the SARS. It says stuff like written on it, like, oh, he got called a black chimpanzee, but it wasn't racist. And then it's like, on its own, that's fine. But you've got three other reports from the same person
yeah,
says different things, and each one you've underplayed each one, and then you've got 3, 4 from other kids that are still comments that are get on, and you're like, really, like
yeah,
really, you're going to do it? But then I can't. I think that the mistake could have even been made harmlessly by teachers going up, not necessarily they're racist, but if they think that he's someone that's going to make up these stories and take everything he says with a pinch of salt, that's where the issue comes in.
yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah. Exactly. And I think that's where I think it's really important that communication is transparent.
mhm.
That could have been solved
Yeah.
quite quickly if you were kind of kept in the loop and you could, you could speak to him and say, right, what actually happened when he's feeling calm and and he could have told you exactly what happened, and then you could have gone and said, well, actually, I mean, I hear from parents all the time that things are being done or organized, or I was talking to a parent the other day whose child has been signed up for online schooling, but they haven't been told. They haven't that hasn't been communicated at all. And I think it's really important that the transparency and the communication is there in that language that everyone can understand, and everyone can see exactly what's going on. So we're not in situations where kids are on reduced timetables for the entire year. You know, they're not, which is not okay. Or that there was a parent the other day whose child she gets called up every day at 10 o'clock in the morning to pick him up because of behaviour. But not, there's nothing written down. There's no behaviour plan. He's not being suspended. So it's actually not allowed for the school to do that. Again, it's that what you don't know, you don't know. So that parent didn't know that that's not okay.
Yeah, and that's the whole when they try and push them to deregister, isn't it? That
Yeah,
what I see after when they start slipping at grade, the next step will be if the behaviour's there, then it's a restricted timetable. If they're struggling already to get in and you put it to 1 day a week, 10 times worse. They're never going to get back. And then
yeah,
there's that gap, isn't there? That void where I speak to so many parents that have got kids that are just waiting for something to happen, either an EHCP to go through so they can finally get a new school, someone to turn up to help them do tutoring or something, and the
yeah.
kid's been off school for a year, and it's like, how are you now? You've got to do this work on top of a year of being out of school. It's they're just creating problems. The problems are causing more problems, and it's just trickling.
Yeah. And, like my son's been out of school for 2 years, and I'm lucky enough to be in a position where I was able to change what I'm
Hmm.
doing in order to support that. There are so many families out there who can't just be like, all right, okay, I need to stay at home with them. They deserve that education, regardless of how hard it is
Yep.
in terms from schools. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. There is always something that can be done to support these kids. And I think, you know, I know with Teddy, 2 years is reaching a point where he's like, I'm never going to go back into school because
Yeah.
it's become such a barrier for him that, I don't know what
I
he's
wouldn't do it.
for.
Well, if like just think if when you was going through school, if they just took you out of school, like say like in year 8, so you've just got in there, had like a year with your mates, they take you out and you're meant to go back into the same school in like year 10 or 11.
Yeah.
Or even worse, a different school with
Yeah.
new friends going in at fifth. No,
Yeah.
no. Like I'm not even thinking about it. I'm like, no way. Like
Yeah.
that. Do you know what I mean? It's just and you can't expect. And then they go, oh well, they should be coming in. They should be doing this. It's just like no, you should. You need to understand what's happened the last year, not just what you're
Yeah.
seeing. Oh, we've been waiting for this. Oh, you should be happy. Oh, the kid's not the same kid it was two
No,
years ago.
exactly, exactly. And that's heartbreaking for a parent. I've walked away from so many meetings bawling my eyes out because I've had to say just how low Teddy's got. And, he became suicidal. He couldn't leave the house. And having to say those things out loud to professionals made me feel like the absolute worst parent in the world. And that's with the knowledge that I've got from being a professional. That's with the knowledge and knowing actually there wasn't anything that I could do any more that I could do as a parent to help him. But I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking of these things because it sticks
Yeah.
with you as a parent because your job is, you know, and that's what's important, I think, for professionals to understand. It's not that parents are fighting the schools. It's not that parents want to fight the schools. There's so many other things we want to be able to do. It's fighting for our kids.
Yeah.
That's the difference. We're not trying to fight the schools. We understand that there are wonderful teachers and wonderful Senkos. That's not what we're doing. We're not trying to fight the schools. It might look like that, but we're fighting for our children. And sometimes we're fighting for our children's lives, for our children's futures. and you're going to get really passionate and you're going to get really involved, and that doesn't make you that parent, or it might make you that, but who cares?
Every single one of them, every single one of the teachers or whatever would have that opinion if they had their own SEN child would come onto our side. And that's the mad thing about it. And
Yeah,
that's the crazy thing. It's one of the things you can ignore yourself and you go, oh, and then come to the side. So as much as again, it's just the one hit away from
yeah,
understanding. Like
yeah.
do you think that schools like it's hard. I don't know how to. Do you reckon they deliberately segregate Sen from? It's because when I look at it from what I know from schools and obviously often especially from children's homes and stuff like that. When you talk about attendance and grades, and that's when they step in, it seems it's very hard to think that they actually don't see SEN as anything. If you think of it as a business or company, see SEN as a very big hurdle that affects your outlook, right?
Yeah,
And you've got the conundrum of you either then go, I don't care what we look like, we know we're going to be a good school for SEN, and then you get found out being an SEN friendly school, which then turns your school that's mainstream into a very heavily SEN school. Was
yeah, yeah,
so it's almost like
yeah. And do you know, I've been very lucky with the schools I work in, where that hasn't been the case, but from speaking to so many other parents, around the country, it's hard not to feel like that is the case. And
Mhm.
as a teacher, I think, oh my gosh, there must be teachers out there who are feeling the same as me, who don't want to feel defensive about the profession. But until you hear these stories from parents who are absolutely struggling, you don't know. You don't realize how bad it can actually be. And you're lucky if you're in a school where you haven't heard of these scenarios, because to me, that shows that maybe you are in a good school. But hearing from all these people from around the country, it's awful that so many of them aren't like that, and that
Mhm.
parents are at their absolute wits' end. You know,
Yeah.
I heard, I forget where I heard, I think it was on your podcast. We shouldn't have to become lawyers and, you
Oh
know,
yeah.
these things as parents to get our children an education. That shouldn't be what we're doing. We shouldn't have to quit our jobs. We shouldn't have to do all these things, but we do,
It
because
questions the first world dynamic, doesn't it? Like it's a required thing that's education, and we're struggling for education.
yeah,
How
yeah,
how have we not got education for kids? Like that's crazy in a first world country.
yeah,
Like it's really baffling again to see that that's just so common. Like
yeah,
that was like I would when I was going through school, having someone that got like expelled or someone that didn't go to school, that was very far and few between. And
yeah,
now you've got kids at 7 saying they're depressed.
yeah,
Like it's like voluntarily not being able to cope in school. It's gone from the only way to get out of school before was get kicked out by doing something really bad. So now
yeah,
it's so bad that kids are not even getting in because they can't get in. Not because the
yes,
school have even got anywhere to do anything with them yet. They're just the whole thing of school is just it's just getting them.
pretty much. And I saw actually on the Send Help app, and there's
Mm.
been a conversation about how so many children are not deemed kind of bad enough for a
Mhm.
SEN school, but can't cope in mainstream, and there's not that in between.
No.
Yes, there are some schools with like SEN bases and things, and that's great, but actually, where do these children lie? And a lot of the time, those are the children who are out of school because they're
Yeah.
not able to get into an SEN school, but mainstream is just far too hard to cope with, far too much to cope with. And a lot of the time, from my experience anyway, I've seen a lot of those children are the ones who aren't accessing school at all in whatever.
And that kind of makes it even more upsetting because then it's kind of like they just dismiss the diagnosis completely. Like
Yeah,
it's not bad enough to get to the SEN school, so you should be able to cope in mainstream. No,
yeah,
that's not how it works.
yeah,
And again, when I go back to like how the schools work and how that would be seen in schools about attendance slipping and it doesn't look good for fund, it doesn't look good and stuff like that, which just shows you how systematic again, 'cause the teachers don't have any control of that. That would just be the
yeah,
way that it looks. If a
yeah,
teacher then tries to go out of their way to do that, she looks like a bad teacher or he
yeah,
looks like a bad teacher because they're not getting their kids' grades up or they're not getting because they're spending time. It's just it's a real big ripple effect. And there is I think I'm not. I don't know if I'm making this up or there's like something about this, like a documentary or something that's just come out called "The Forgotten Children," which is about specifically these kids that
I
are left in the lurch, that are about out of school. Yeah, and I know I spoke to someone as well about it's done something that's called unauthorized absence, which is similar. she's just done a short film, and it's about the kids that have been out of school, that can't get in school, and they're just getting punished and fines from the government
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
and it's just I can't. It's just it's like a scandal. It's got to be a scandal we're living through. It's got to.
Yeah.
Got to be.
Yeah.
It has to be a
And
scandal.
I think it's even more systemic than teachers not being able to do anything, because if, for example, if a school's attendance goes completely down, well, then that will trigger lots of things for the head teacher. You know, if the grades go completely down, that's going to trigger Ofsted coming in.
Yes. Yeah.
That could be the head teacher, the Senko. That could be them losing their job. So everybody's working towards something that's higher than them, that they have to just jump through that hoop. So it
Who is
can't.
this secret cult? Who is this secret cult that sits at the head of this? There's got to be the ringleaders of this. It goes all
Yeah,
the way up, and then there's a secret
yeah,
society that's telling,
yeah. Who's
like,
never ever met a neurodivergent person in their life? Yeah,
oh God, that's probably still domestic abusive, and still,
yeah,
yes, that's
yeah.
from old school. Like, oh, it's
But
really,
that's why there are still things like attendance awards and 100% attendance awards and stupid things like that, because people higher up are working towards these really stressful, you know, things that they have to work towards, otherwise their job's in jeopardy. And it's just
yeah,
all, you know, we're kind of forgetting
statistics, isn't
why
it?
we're
Instead
here.
of actual, yeah,
It's like we're here
statistics over
for the
real lives.
children. Yeah. We should be here for the children no matter what. And I think a lot of what I try and do is empower parents to have that knowledge and to have that vocabulary to stand up for their child in a way that's going to get them listened to, which shouldn't even be an issue. It should be, you send an email in however way you write, however
Yeah,
way that is, and you are listened to because you are the parent and you know them best. But unfortunately, unless you are writing like you are, you know, a university graduate or whatever, that support sometimes isn't listened to.
and
And that,
I
I
think that,
find,
yeah, that's unfair, isn't it, for the parents, isn't it, that haven't had that professional background or anything, or even the ones that are going through it like myself. I've got to say, like, I still, the biggest lesson that I learned about going through my oldest's case, I very quickly learned that I need to take myself out of the role of the disgruntled parent. So even if I wasn't, I needed to make it so minimize it so that it couldn't say that. So that's
yeah,
why I've done the SARS and used their own paperwork and done stuff. And even in the emails, it then very quickly was, I'm not saying this, they're saying this with their own
yeah,
paperwork. And that got responded to a lot better
yeah,
higher up through the fingers than when I was going in saying, I've just got this problem, they're doing it to the, do you know what I mean? It really,
yeah,
but then even having to do that was exhausting me, because what I wanted to say was not what I was typing and emailing, because I was kind of letting them off, like, and then trying to
yeah,
think, I'm not saying it as serious as it is. And I'm hoping that they're going to see that and be like, oh, okay, we understand. And here's the site, and it's what we need to do. And luckily it worked. But again, how can you tell parents to not be pissed off
yeah, yeah.
in
I
some of the
know.
situations they're in?
Yeah, exactly. And it's there are parents out there who, until that email is sent in a certain way, nothing happens. I sent an email for somebody just the other day, and that was the child being taken out of school at 10 o'clock. It stopped the next day because of that email. And you just think, this parent has been asking for this for a long time, but until you put that language, that jargon, you know, the
Yeah. Or that code of practice that you need to mention, or that
exactly,
little thing. Yeah.
yeah. And I mentioned the legalities, and that's what make people go, yeah, they're right, actually. They're
They'll
right.
take it
Keep
further.
doing
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why keeping a record of everything is so important for everyone, really. I think it protects parents, it protects teachers, but more importantly, it protects the child, because you can then be held accountable. Both sides, you know, people can be held accountable for getting things done. So if you've
Yeah.
said we're going to get a professional in by this time, you get a professional in by this time, because it's written black and white and it's done. If
Yeah.
we say, you know, again, that wishy-washy language, it's never going to get done. It's going to be in the never, never, or, oh, the next teacher might be able to deal with it, or the next school will be able to deal with it. But there needs to be like those smart targets that people are held accountable to.
I'm seeing a lot, and this is making me sad as well. I mean, if it, it's because, again, it's because they have to. I'm seeing a lot of parents taking SEND law courses and
Yeah.
let's SEND qualifications right at the moment, and I'm thinking that is so extreme. Like, but not that they have to do it. Well, that they have to do, not that they're being extreme, but it's so extreme that we have to go to that level to
Yeah.
even have. Because then, even if and what I question about that is sometimes they don't even care, even with that knowledge and with their law practice, a behavioural policy or something goes above that, and they don't care. But even the fact that that's like a qualification just to know if the school are not taking care of your kid.
It is
Like,
insane. And they're not
we were safer when they used to beat us. It looks like when they used to throw the rippers and that, it was safer. Like,
yeah.
what the hell happens?
Yeah. And yeah, those courses can be like hundreds, if not thousands
Yep.
of pounds that parents are scraping together to become, like we said, like lawyers. And it's like, this is absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But you can also see it like social media. It's full of parents trying to support other parents because there's this massive gap where so many of us are feeling not supported, or supported to an extent, but actually they're still struggling.
What was important, and not to brag about my apps, but I will. But yeah, but no, but what I found about that as well is it's crazy to see that everyone's saying the same thing but not united, because of there's still like the people that comment on the open web, or you're going to see that one politician saying that one thing that gives you the doubt. Even if you've got all these other people across the board saying, yeah, you're right, and you get that one person saying, no, you're wrong because of this, and they become like a professional, and you're going to think, oh, maybe I've got it wrong, or maybe I've got
Yeah.
this, and the doubt, and it's even very hard to come out. And what I don't like as well is the cease and desist. So like, I don't like the fact that parents are not allowed to talk about their experience, or
Yeah.
seem to not be allowed to talk about the experience, and they get hit with, oh, you cease and desist, or this is. So even when they go through everything that's happened, they then can't get a piece of, and that makes you feel insane as well, because you can't validate it.
Yeah.
If you can't validate what you've gone through and you feel insane going through it anyway, it's like a domestic abuse relationship, like real bad, like compared to
Yeah.
as the kids, like against the parents, like the gaslighting, everything, but
Yeah.
literally is to control and everything.
I agree with the app, because sometimes it's so nice just to go on there and say, like, I went on there the other day and just said my daughter made it into school. And to other people that might be like, yeah, and but for me, I was like, yes, like she overcame her, and there was really supportive comments of people who are going through exactly the same thing, and stop that feeling of you're going crazy. Of course your 7-year-old should be going into school and loving it. Um, and it does make you feel you're part of something that other people are going through, even if it is hard.
It is, and I say it's then parenting is something that's crazy, because in a well, what doing this has an opposite effect that I don't think people realised, was pushing so many SEND parents together has actually created something that is done something that they've been trying to do for ages. It's created a community that doesn't care about race, religion, doesn't care about your class, whether you're
Yeah.
middle class, lower class, if you're famous, if you're rich, if you've got money, if you haven't. It doesn't, because they don't discriminate themselves against their parents. It's also created a community that doesn't discriminate against its other. So when
Yeah.
you've got that community and you've got that support behind you, it's so empowering,
Yeah.
because it's almost like you've gone from thinking that you're going mad. And then I feel it even happens with the community. I said I was questioning some of the racist things. I was thinking maybe they're not racist. Maybe they're, and I was thinking, come on, stop. Like, that
Yeah.
clearly is. But it
Yeah.
does. But until you've got that validation and you've got that community and you've got that, and then you've got the numbers, which I'm hoping this year is one of what we get to kind of get. We get the numbers of like Facebook, everyone being brave enough to be able to speak out, and not necessarily about everything. I don't necessarily just need it to be negative stuff, because there is good schools out there. It just needs
Yeah.
to be as a whole. It just needs to be spoken about. I think just it needs
Yeah.
to be such a taboo thing that it's a left not talking about their kids and the trauma the kids have got. I mean, the kids are getting diagnosed now from trauma from school. That as a
Yeah.
diagnosis, like trauma-based, school-based trauma. What?
Yeah. That
Like,
is just heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. It really is. Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think the more people talk about it, the more it becomes just accepted, and the more then, hopefully, that's when that systemic change
yeah.
might happen.
Because as you said, you've got when you really think about it, it could be anybody. You could have a head teacher on your side that has a kid. It could so
Yeah.
discriminate. It doesn't discriminate. You have these people on the side, and more people as then like you and myself that be able to use it and tie it together and become both. As I said, I still think I place myself in the middle of a professional and a parent, because I still feel I've got knowledge of a professional and a parent, but I haven't been in the both fields too long enough. So I still think that the parents give me most of my insights and knowledge, because it's constant, isn't it? It's,
Yeah,
oh, I've done this or this works, and it's just a constant stream of learning and focusing. You're never going to know it all, and I think that was the biggest shock for me coming down, realizing that as well, that the parenting actually is the main profession. Like, as I said, professional
absolutely.
parents, it by far, even as a professional like us, we're still in the middle, and we still lean on parents to guide us of how we can put that into professional practice. Like, it's very heavily.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I think, because things change so quickly, um, that training should be all the time. You know,
Mhm.
it should be that teachers are coming together and we talk about, um, you had this child last year and you worked really well. What are some of the strategies that work for this one
Yes.
child? Because the blanket strategies might not work. And, we are going to get it wrong because we're human. Um, I think parents are going to be much more likely to not forgive, but, to understand if that relationship is there first. If there's
Yeah.
no relationship with your child and then you get it wrong, well, then you're in a situation where you don't really have a leg to stand on. But if you've worked really hard to build that rapport with a child and their family, and you do something which is, didn't work or whatever it is, then that becomes a lot more is an easier pill to swallow for the parents because you know that their heart's in the right
They've tried.
place.
Yeah, they've tried. And as said, as parents would get it wrong. They know that,
Yeah,
especially in school, we're going to get it wrong. But they
yeah,
haven't. It's just the attempt of trying, isn't it? And trying
yeah,
to at least try and meet us on a level. To at least try and don't shut it off. And at
yeah.
least don't so obviously back policies that you don't actually believe in. That's
Yes.
another thing that annoys me. Like, I know you're human. You got into teaching because you like kids.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
where's
It's
that
definitely
gone?
not
Now,
for the money.
yeah, that's what I mean. Exactly. It wasn't for money or because you thought even without the neurodiversity it was going to be an easy role. It
Yeah,
wasn't. Like,
yeah, yeah.
it's
It's really,
isn't it? But I hope this year, I think what this year is, well, I think it's been changing for the last few years, and I think again they've underestimated the numbers of us there will be by making it a minority that's not actually a minority that's going to be 50 in the next 5 years, I
yeah,
reckon.
yeah,
So it's actually not. It's just something that they really need to back down with. But I'm hoping that people and parents picking up, and it's just going to be overwhelming, and something has to change
yeah.
because of that.
Wave of change is coming.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if not, we're just going to piss off a lot of people for a long time. I mean, it's just going to be that. It's just going to be like constant war for like back and forth for ages. It's going to be
Yeah,
really unsettling.
yeah,
But I think it's good. I think it's great, and I think yeah, I'm very glad to have, especially like someone like you on the app that's able to. I said offer your services in the app. Obviously, then have like more of the group sessions with the parents and like
yeah,
helping because it's just we all are in this together, and I think the more that we can see that we're in it together, it helps parents as well. Again, seeing people like us working together is very strong, I think, across parent boards because it shows it's not like a money grab. It's not like a,
yeah,
it's not like we are parents first, and I think that really really matters because that is where the gap is needed. That we need
yeah,
to kind of be there to create this gap and create this thing. And I think it's really good to have just people that could you can signpost to straight away, see where
yeah,
you are. And obviously,
yeah,
again with your services as well, pushing anyone to your service. I think it's great what you're doing.
yeah.
We didn't even get to the ADHD coaching. That's a whole other episode.
I
That's
know.
like, yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that in itself, I could do a whole episode on that. Actually, maybe we should do an episode on that because I've been. It'd be good to talk about just ADHD and
Yeah.
about all of the issues that comes, adult and kids and that because I think again it really changes between adults and
Yes.
children. And
Yeah.
they lied to me. They told me that I was going to grow out of it. I didn't. I got worse. It was just like, "Wait, this. What happens when you're older? Would you grow out of it? Really?" And
Yeah.
yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, it was. I think that was great. I think that was a really, really, really strong podcast, and I think that's got lots of little bits of information that are really going to help, and I think that's going to help ultimately a lot of people. And I hope a lot of people come and feel heard from it. Like
Yeah.
we're referencing other people's families, but also our own, and I think that's important that we've gone
Yeah.
through this as well, and we're
Absolutely.
all going through some kind of madness. And I just don't know who this cult is. I really need to. It's like Illuminati on steroids. That there've never even been conspiracy theories about these educational Illuminati. They're out there.
Yeah.
We've been looking at the music business too long. They've been holding.
Yeah, for sure.
No, but no. Thank you very much for your
No,
time and
thank
for coming on
you.
and for everything in the future that we're gonna. I'm really excited about what we're gonna
Yeah, me
achieve from
too.
that.
Me too. No, thank you
And
very
yeah,
much.
yeah, nice.